Chapter 338. Wu Bin furrowed his brows slightly when faced with Peony's inquiry. Then he revealed a smile and said, "It's like this. According to the latest intelligence, some of our targets have the ability to spit out large doses of radiation for a short period of time. They like to live in radiation zones. So I specifically invited Mr. Long 7. Wu Bin extended his hand as he spoke. Long 7 was very cooperative. He stood up to greet the people present. His bearing and demeanor were first-rate. His natural and relaxed body language diluted the awkward atmosphere in the conference room. There should be applause here. The participants really did start clapping. Wu Bin invited Long 7 to sit down and continued. Mr. Long 7 is a professional talent recommended by Northern Hope Corporation. He possesses the special ability to use radiation harmlessly. Northern Hope Corporation's vision is worthy of trust as the world's top provider of human resources solutions. I also believe in Mr. Long 7's professionalism. At the same time, please believe in our sincerity and cooperation, and our ability to fulfill the contract." Luonin already had a rough judgment when he heard this. This team should have frequent dealings with ability users. Talking about special abilities was as natural as drinking water to them. They didn't pay much attention to Ink, a strange pet. Presumably, they were rich in experience and didn't find it strange. This saved them a lot of worry. Peony interlaced her 10 fingers. The back of her hand arched slightly to support her chin. She appeared to be even more focused. However, the crow feather that lightly scratched the side of her face revealed a bit of interest. Of course, no matter what position a beauty was in, she looked good. She also had the wonderful effect of dispelling the negative emotions of others. She smiled just like this. "The firm has no doubts about your company's strength and reputation, but out of professional considerations, all matters must be led by the firm during the investigation and target locking process. This point cannot be changed because of the team's composition, the target species, the environment, and other factors." Wu Bin immediately responded, "We won't go back on the matters emphasized in the agreement." Peony's gaze switched to Long 7's face. "The firm will not be responsible for any losses caused by the partners or team members who violate the terms of the agreement during the operation. We will withdraw from this project according to the agreement and demand compensation." Wu Bin confirmed, "No objections." Long 7 gazed at Peony from the side. 2 seconds passed before he laughed. "I provide specialized services. Miss Peony oversees the overall situation. The two don't contradict each other. I will certainly abide by the relevant provisions." Peony laughed as she sat up straight. She tossed the crow feather on the table. "Then I have nothing else to say." Wu Bin secretly heaved a sigh of relief. A bold smile appeared on his face. "Since we're a team, it's best to communicate in time. Being able to point it out like Miss Peony can eliminate many problems." Although he said this, he wasn't willing to let Peony open her mouth again. He indicated that the personal introduction should quickly begin. Immediately, the team members introduced themselves one by one, as well as their positions in the team. Very soon, it was Peony and Long 7's turn. Draconic 7's appearance was rather noble, but he had a sense of community. He took the initiative to introduce himself. "Director Wu mentioned just now that he's mainly interested in my radiation decontamination ability. I won't talk about that. In addition, I've also done some research on firearms and exoskeleton operations." Peony suddenly interrupted him. "What kind of exoskeleton? Military? Police? Or a deep blue walker?" Long Chi smiled and replied, "Anything is fine." "Oh, sorry for my rudeness." Though she said this, Peony wasn't surprised in the slightest. She casually raised her hand, indicating that it was her turn. "As you can see, my special ability is to control birds to carry out wide-area reconnaissance. In addition, I can do some intelligence integration and analysis work." "It seems like the team already has an intelligence officer," Wu Bin immediately declared. "We will definitely cooperate well. Axel Thor is mainly in charge of communication and information sharing. He's a very good assistant." Intelligence Officer Axel Thor, who had just introduced himself, stood up once more and greeted Peony. Afterwards, he didn't sit down again. Instead, he followed Wu Bin's intentions and began to introduce the specific information of the operation project. This wasn't just a report to Peony and Draconic 7. The vast majority of the people in the conference room were elites of Trigate Security's operations department. However, they didn't have the authority to inspect certain key information. It was necessary to carry out a comprehensive explanation. The light in the room dimmed, and the projector turned on, projecting a different world inside. The light in the background was that of dusk. The setting sun shone at an angle, and the dark red soil of the desolate plains was folded layer upon layer. It absorbed the multicolored light, like a surging wave of blood that froze in an instant. It piled up into an uncountable number of hills and ravines, extending all the way to the ends of the world. The wilderness, wave peaks and hills, Draconic 7 muttered. He seemed to be talking to himself, but he also seemed to be deliberately communicating with Peony. Peony turned her head to look at him. You're very familiar with the surrounding terrain of Xia City. I run around once in a while. In the time it took to say 2 or 3 sentences, the aerial image continued to push forward. At the end of the monotonous horizon, the altitude gradually dropped, revealing a blood-colored hilly region. This caused Draconic 7's words to be filled with foresight. The camera gradually locked onto the target. In the skies above the hilly region, countless black dots circled in the dusky sky. They were like a weary flock of birds returning to their nests. But when the camera zoomed in and locked onto an individual, Luo Nan's eyelids twitched, even though he was far away in Acumen College's campus. The thing that appeared in the center of the projection wasn't a bird at all. It was more like an ugly and deformed bat. This was a mutant without a doubt. The body of this bat wasn't large. Its wingspan was around 30 centimeters. Its head was like that of a small canine. Its ears were very large, its teeth were sharp, and its eyes were blood red. Its entire body was covered in grayish-black fur. The most recognizable part was the 4 claws that stretched out from the edge of the membrane-like wings. From a different angle, one could see that this monster had all 4 limbs, and its muscles were knotted together. It looked extremely powerful, and its membrane wings were more like appendages. Intelligence Officer Axel Thew's explanation intervened in time. The winghand bloodbat is a gregarious mutant. It normally feeds on the blood of large mammals. When it sucks blood, it injects paralysis toxins and various viruses. If the dose is high enough, it can be fatal. Its diet includes humans as well as its own kind. A large population can be classified as a Class 2 threat. In the wilderness, vagrants generally call it pubula. It's an onomatopoeia, an imitation of the sound it makes when it flaps its wings. He turned on the sound effects as he spoke. The sound of the scene was reproduced with extremely high fidelity. Hundreds and thousands of strange bats circled and danced in the air, emitting a strange sound. It was like a large number of flags fluttering in the wind. It was a continuous stretch. Axel Thew cut out an anatomical diagram at the edge of the projection. Everyone, please take note. The winghand bloodbat doesn't have a vocal organ. In its normal state, it doesn't make a sound when it flies or eats. It's a terrifying assassin of the night. It only makes a similar sound when it's courting a mate. Of course, they are extremely irritable and sensitive during these times. Their destructive power is at its strongest. As he spoke, a diagram popped up below the anatomical diagram. It seemed like this person's PPT skill was maxed out. The winghand bloodbat is in heat. When it sucks blood, it injects a virus that is highly contagious and lethal. There have been many records of small to medium-sized vagrant tribes being wiped out by the virus. For example, this place is the ruins of a vagrant tribe that perished. The camera's perspective shifted. One could see that there were some empty holes on top of the hill. They were quite regular, serving as doors and windows. These were the crypts commonly used by vagrant tribes. They were relatively sturdy and had strong concealment. They could avoid the majority of predators in the wilderness. The game 10 Days in the Wilderness had scenes of crypt battles. Even Luo Nan was no stranger to it. It was just that what appeared on the screen was deathly stillness. As the camera switched, a few dried-up corpses appeared amidst the rubble and weeds. Practically every single person's body was curled up. It was easy to imagine that they had experienced a bitter struggle. The conference room was silent. Intelligence Officer Axel Thew continued to explain. We need to pay special attention to this. According to the latest research, certain mutant winghand bloodbats have evolved to have limited control over the virus. I don't know if everyone understands what I'm saying. Long 7 interrupted and asked, are you saying that the winghand bloodbat can control whether or not the target is infected? No. It's the degree of infection. It might even include the probability of mutation. According to the experimental data of a certain research organization, a single winghand bloodbat has successfully caused 2 experimental bodies to undergo mutation. Human experiments? Intelligence Officer Axel Thew swept a glance at his boss and shrugged. The data doesn't show this. He didn't continue on this topic. He just patiently introduced all sorts of habits of the winghand bloodbat, including the latest results of various research organizations. He didn't even leave out the mutant subspecies. Inevitably, he also explained the routes and areas where this mutant could infiltrate Sia City one by one. Looking back, they spent a total of over 2 hours. Acumen College's morning classes had ended by this time. Trigate Corporation probably felt that it was too long and tedious. All sorts of drinks and fruits were placed on the table. Even Ink was given a cup of water. They waited until the end with great difficulty, but a rather impressive display board appeared on the side of the projection. There were many dark silhouettes and silhouettes on it. They were roughly divided into 4 layers. The top layer was a bit sparse, but the bottom layer was densely packed. There were at least 20 of them. The images of the wilderness and the flock of winghand bloodbats transformed into a mass of light and entered the first silhouette in the upper left corner. This was the tempo of the conference going on for 2 days. Long 7 couldn't help but shake his head. It's quite a large scale. Isn't it better to sound the red alert now? Peony's eyes and lips were smiling, but the meaning behind her words wasn't the same. She didn't expect a direct response from Wu Bin. She directly spoke to her pet. Mr. Ink, have you woken up? Ink, who had been a wooden statue for a long time, raised its eyelids. It really did sleep under Luo Nan's orders. It only left a strand of mental clairvoyance to observe its surroundings for Luo Nan to use. Otherwise, with its lively and restless nature, it would have caused a ruckus long ago. We've already prepared lunch. I asked the 2 experts to honor us. Wu Bin had no choice but to open his mouth to explain as he invited. The winghand bloodbats are exceptions. Peony cast a sidelong glance. 3 exceptions. And they're still called exceptions? There were 4 layers of silhouettes on the display board. The topmost layer had a total of 3, including the winghand bloodbats. The second layer had 5. The third and fourth layers each had 8. There were a total of 24. There was no need to talk about exceptions. Just the fact that 24 mutants had slaughtered their way into Sia City was one of the most serious public safety incidents in the last 30 years. Wu Bin continued to beat around the bush. The threat of these targets decreases in descending order from the top to the bottom. For this reason, we design milestones and stage bonuses. The topmost 3 have special prizes. Peony looked straight at Wu Bin's face. It's great to talk about money, but the government and military rarely engage in this sort of targeted search, right? This way we can increase efficiency. Yeah, it saves quite a bit of effort. Mr. Long 7, what do you think? Long 7 crossed his arms over his chest and made an action that wasn't very noble. The level of modern technology is really changing with each passing day. Peony pressed down on the goblet on the table and gave it a slight spin. The blue foam of the drink hung on the wall and spun. She then raised her glass and indicated to Long 7. Cheers to the future of the Earth. Chapter 339. It was the turn of autumn and winter. The night increased and the sun shrunk. Half of the afternoon club time had yet to pass, but the sunlight that poured into Acumen College was dyed with a layer of blood. It faintly overlapped with the wilderness in the projection. Luo Nan rode the campus trolley to the auditorium. His eyes were half closed, looking like he was sleeping yet not. Shuele didn't care. He had to split his attention. He had been like this all day, but his wristband vibrated for a dozen or so seconds. He could hear the buzzing vibrations from the side, But this bro still didn't respond. What was the meaning of this? In the end, Shuele couldn't help but give Luonan a push. Someone's calling you. Luonan went, ah, and finally came back to his senses. He looked at the contact and picked up the phone. Hello, third brother. The caller was Hu Huaying. The call connected with great difficulty. He asked right away, Nanster, where are you? I'm heading to Gear. Okay. Hurry up and get over here. The construction team is wrapping up their work today. The underground facilities can be considered to have been repaired. They called Old Xia, and Old Xia called me. He asked you to come and check it out. Check it out. Luonan felt that it was quite comical. Ever since Gear was damaged by fire last week, it had become a gathering place for all sorts of immortals. There were always 5 or 6 or 7 spies. Check it out for what? Check the amount of intelligence collected by each clan? Of course, this matter had nothing to do with Xie Junping and Hu Huaying. In the end, Luonan was too high profile back then. He also displayed extraordinary importance to Gear. Even if there was nothing special about Gear, it would still attract a few glances. Plus, this place wasn't that simple. Luonan's mood swayed for a moment before he responded in a low voice. I understand. I'll be there in a moment. Luonan hung up and leaned back. He unconsciously furrowed his brows. Shuele turned his head to look. You're not having a meeting anymore? Luonan grunted. I'm not having a meeting. It's too long. I don't really understand. Actually, his words were a bit insincere. Shuele didn't hear it. He was just curious. What did they talk about? It's about mutations, genetic pollution, transmission probabilities, and things like that. Luonan used telepathy to inform Peony as he spoke to Shuele. He only retained a bit of telepathy to give Inca rain. His attention was completely withdrawn. It was already 4:30 in the afternoon. The meeting had already been going for 7 hours. Luonan withdrew, and he subconsciously let out a breath of relief. As time went on, the meeting became more and more involved in various professional discussions. The relevant professional knowledge was too obscure and profound for a high school student. Sometimes, it was like listening to a book from heaven. Forcefully trying to understand it was extremely taxing on the brain, and there were also inaccurate problems. If that was the case, then it would be better to directly listen to the results. The hidden indigo trading firm had arranged it this way. Luonan finally understood Zhang Yingying's good intentions. If he followed the pattern of today's meeting, then he wouldn't need to do anything for the next few days. But Luonan had to admit that this long meeting really broadened his horizons. The professional knowledge regarding the mutants and the wilderness, as well as the relevant intelligence analysis, were mostly unheard of and unseen. It was all thanks to the remedial classes that he had taken during this period of time. Otherwise, he probably wouldn't even be able to grasp the relevant basic knowledge. Recently, you have to be careful of cats, dogs, birds, bats, and mice. Don't get hurt by them. By the way, there's a recycling stratum in the Twin River district. Pay attention to the people. What's wrong? Virus infection? A plague outbreak? It's not that serious. It doesn't affect normal people too much. It's mainly us. Luonan recalled the knowledge he obtained from the meeting and gave Shuele a warning. Mutants spread the virus. The stronger and stronger the infected person, the greater the probability of a mutation occurring. Ability users were the most dangerous group. Just like the storm caused by the splitting and spreading of the human-faced arachnid some time ago. Aside from a few unlucky bastards who were close by, normal people practically escaped unscathed. But many ability users of the Xia City branch were controlled by the parasite, causing a huge mess. It was an infection on the mental plane. And for mutants like the winghand bat, their toxins and viruses were transmitted through the blood. Enhanced fleshly body users were more likely to attract flies. Shuele's teeth ached from hearing this. He grimaced in pain and couldn't help but ask for a few details. Luonan acted as the translator. He told Luonan the information he knew and selected the ones that were directly related to himself. He only requested that Shuele not spread it further, and that he remind his family to be careful. It was fine for them to immediately contact the society if any symptoms occurred. Biohazard crisis, huh? Did the city hide it like this? If you didn't say it, there wouldn't have been any news at all. Oh right. Is there a problem with you saying these things? I did sign a confidentiality agreement. Luonan laughed and waved his hand. The agreement clearly states that the Hidden Indigo firm and its shareholders have the right to know and follow up on relevant developments. They also have the right to notify relevant stakeholders at their discretion, but it shouldn't cause any social impact. Isn't that fine? Social impact? Shuele didn't quite understand. Don't go on the various authoritative media outlets. Rumors don't reach a certain scale. This should be fine. Shuele let out a sigh of relief, but he couldn't help but laugh in spite of himself. This agreement isn't worth a fart. It can be considered an unequal agreement. This clause was indeed extremely vague. If one were to force the words out, then the scope of knowledge could be expanded limitlessly. The Xia City branch was a shareholder of the Hidden Indigo firm. It was also a relevant public welfare party. And Shuele was also a member of the society. There was no problem, in terms of legal principles. It was unknown how many times Peony had used this sort of method in the meeting to torment Wu Bin to the point where he wanted to cry, but had no tears. This was another harvest of Luonan's today. Aside from professional knowledge, it also included methods and techniques for handling matters. Peony, Long 7, Director Wu Bin, Intelligence Officer Axel though, and the others had done a very good demonstration of this. Luonan spoke to Shuele, expressing his emotions. Swords and blades killing silently. Just what are these people's brains made of? He truly admired Luonan. Luonan had experienced many things ever since he entered the inner world. He was always in the eye of the storm, and he was always the target of concentrated fire. There were many times when he needed to be at the forefront, contending against his opponents and negotiating with his teammates. There was no room for buffering. Reality proved that he wasn't a natural leader. To a certain degree, he was even lame. Ever since he was 10 years old, he spent the vast majority of his time in experiments, burying his head in research. His personality was introverted to the point of being autistic. He had no concept of certain things at all. He could only follow his feelings. There were many flaws in his actions, and there were many times when he was courting death. Fortunately, his luck was decent. He had the support of the power bestowed upon him by formatting theory. He also had the help of He Yuan, Zhang Yingying, and even big shots like Ouyangchen. Otherwise, he wouldn't have died a violent death on the streets. Instead, he had stumbled his way through life until now. As for today's meeting, Luonan stayed behind the scenes, a rare sight. Only a strand of his mind was tied to ink. He kept his mouth shut, only bringing his eyes and ears. His experience along the way was truly pure observation, and he truly benefited from it. This was especially true for Peony and Long 7. Peony had a strong ego, but she was very good at using her beauty to conceal herself. Long 7, on the other hand, was a needle hidden in silk. His sharp and arrogant aura was hidden under his confident and noble words and actions. The two would sometimes oppose each other with equal harshness. Sometimes they would cooperate closely. Even a seasoned character like Wu Bin was brought into the rhythm of the entire meeting. The title of team leader had long since ceased to exist in name. The attraction of this sort of scene was much stronger than the dry classroom teaching. Peony and Long 7 were both in their 20s, but their reserves of knowledge, their behavior, their words, and even their personalities made Luonan feel that it was wonderful. He was very envious, and perhaps even a bit inferior. There was a difference of 6 or 7 years in age. Was the difference that big? Would he be able to reach this level if he trained for another 6 or 7 years? All right, it seemed like there was a glimmer of hope. Another call came in just as Luonan was describing the situation in the meeting to Shuele. This time, the call came from a different channel. It was a vibration from the Hexa ear. It was Zhang Yingying. After the call connected, this sister excitedly cut to the chase and asked, "Did you shock them?" Shocked. Luonan sighed from the bottom of his heart. Your firm is full of elites. That Peony is really amazing. She seems to be from our school. Hey, you jumped into the sea to catch lobsters. Now you're being modest? Don't just praise others. What about you? Me. What else can I do? I was just pretending to be a crow there. Crow my ass. I think you're the one who's lost your mind. Bro, you're the core of this project, okay? It doesn't matter if they're elites or not. If you don't say anything, are they playing hide and seek in Xia City? Zhang Yingying's mood drifted erratically. She had been laughing and joking earlier, but now she was resentful that Luo Nan didn't live up to her expectations. The firm outsourced this project to you because of your mental sensing ability. All the work revolved around you. If our firm wants to finish the work, we might as well throw the money into the sea. At least we can hear the sound of it. Luo Nan didn't know how to respond. This was different from their previous bickering. Zhang Yingying was completely standing on his side. She had said everything that needed to be said. It would be a bit rude for him to refute her. He was silent for quite a while, but Zhang Yingying let out a sigh. She slowed down first. I'm not blaming you. I just feel that this opportunity is very good. It's more or less tailor-made for you. You handled things like a game. You can't treat the invasion of mutants as child's play. Describe. I'm just describing, okay? Haven't you noticed? Your biggest problem is that your heartstrings are too taut. Isn't it just searching for mutants? With your mental sensing ability, you're pretty much the only one in Xia City. Aside from the boss and the president, no one can do it better than you. This is your profession, your domain. You're the authority there. If you don't put on airs now, when will you? Oh my god. Luo Nan's silence spoke volumes. Zhang Yingying couldn't help but look up at the sky and let out a long sigh. You were at Frost River Reality and Ocean Sky Cloud City. Your performance was pretty awesome. You blocked people until they went crazy. You tricked people until they vomited blood. You killed people until they were completely annihilated. You were freaking godlike back then. It's only been a few days. How come you're shrinking more and more? I'm not shrinking. Luo Nan wanted to clear his name. Yes. You're an old man, but you can't keep it up all day long. Is your brain short of blood? Zhang Yingying's mouth was like a machine gun. She suddenly fired shots. Relax. Relax your mind. What are you nervous about? Are you afraid of losing face? Don't talk about your authority. Even if you're a bit flawed, you don't even show your face. So what if you're wrong? That crow is called ink, right? It's just a mask. With it blocking the front, no one knows who you are. You can laugh, you can curse, you can cry, and you can make a fuss. As long as you don't tell them, who will know? Chapter 340. Zhang Yingying stuttered a bit when Luo Nan really asked. She had spoken with a wave of emotion, in an attempt to arouse Luo Nan's emotions. She didn't pay attention to what came before and after. She never expected that Luo Nan would be numb to the extreme. He even had the leisure to ask a question. Zhang Yingying had no choice but to make up a story on the spot. Look, people wear masks. They have an extra layer of protection. With protection, it's easier to let go. Isn't there a school of performance that lets people wear masks on stage? That way, the expression of the body is more important. You don't need to worry about your face or your appearance. The audience will naturally imagine things. Isn't it said that imagination is more perfect than reality? Zhang Yingying's logic was already a complete mess when she spoke to this point. Even she had to cover her face. But she never expected that Luo Nan would really be led into the ditch by her. So you're saying that this is a performance and I'm going to manage a new image? This will reduce the pressure? The power of his imagination had exploded. Zhang Yingying's collapsed logic was inadvertently salvaged by Luo Nan. She immediately seized the opportunity and fiercely nodded from the other side. Yeah. Do you see those trolls online? Many of them have high incomes and high education levels. Normally they appear virtuous in front of others. But when they go online, they create sock puppets everywhere. Their mouths are full of shit. This is their way of venting and relieving pressure. Think about it. This is human instinct. Your behavior online is certainly different from your own personality. Luo Nan seriously recalled his online life. Then he answered. There doesn't seem to be any difference. Zhang Yingying took a deep breath. Then she spat out word by word. She gnashed her teeth. Then learn. Learn how others vent. Learn how to let go. Otherwise, you'll collapse sooner or later if you keep being this nervous. You don't need to think about anything else. In the entire firm, only the boss and I know your identity. Even Peony doesn't know. Of course she doesn't know. She's a newcomer. A newcomer? What does she do in your firm? What else can she do? The boss just discovered her recently. He hasn't arranged any specific tasks yet. It just so happens that there's this project. Let her cooperate for a bit. Luonan felt as if his heart had been stabbed with a knife. Not only did he not relax, he became depressed. Newcomers are this amazing. What did she do before? Zhang Yingying was getting impatient. That's because the boss has a good eye. He seems to have been observing for a while, and only recently recruited him. She's not from the society, nor is she from the church. She has nothing to do with the military. God knows where she came from. She's so mysterious. Oh right, don't let her scare you. She's just an assistant and a messenger. The real decision maker is you. Luonan really wanted to say, you wouldn't think this way if you were participating. But he suddenly felt that something was wrong when the words reached his mouth. It was the same topic, but Zhang Yingying's emotions were much more intense than last Sunday. She was obviously not calm. As soon as this thought arose, the words that came out of his mouth also changed. You don't like this peony too much? Zhang Yingying fell silent. Luonan recalled Zhang Yingying's attitude and suddenly realized. You can't be fighting for favor. Jealous of a newcomer? Go to hell. Zhang Yingying was really angry and hung up the call. Luonan grunted, but his judgment became firmer. He could judge from Zhang Yingying's character and words that she should have a very special position in the hidden indigo firm. She was doted on by Her Majesty Empress Wu, and the newcomer peony had suddenly appeared. Her conduct was very brilliant, and her abilities were very strong. She probably gave Zhang Yingying a sense of crisis. These thoughts were very subtle. Perhaps Zhang Yingying herself didn't even realize it, but Luonan had rashly pointed it out. Honestly speaking, this was very rude. Hanging up the call was a light punishment. It was good enough that she didn't blacklist him. Luonan scratched his head. He began to have a headache about how to apologize to Zhang Yingying. But in the end, he wasn't someone who could speak well. In the end, he could only leave a message on the psychic wave network. I misspoke. I'm sorry. Also thank you. I understand. Luonan assessed himself. The first few words were very clumsy, but they were very sincere. But the last few words had a fake meaning. Understand? The reasoning was clear, but his thoughts were far from clear on how to do it. Most of the time, Luonan felt that doing these things didn't have much meaning. Relax. Would relaxing make those enemies who were eyeing him like tigers let go? Would it make his pursuits materialize? If he had the time to mull over this matter, it would be better to calm his heart and do a few more exercises. Suddenly, someone in the car let out a low cry. A muffled bang followed. Something smashed heavily against the car window. This brought about a new, even louder cry. Everyone in the car turned their heads to look. Most of the people in the car were habitually immersed in the internet. They didn't know what was going on outside the window. A guy wearing a baseball cap had already pulled open the window and was cursing into the distance. He even gave a middle finger. Stinky feet. If you lose another 0-3, I'll kick your balls. Luonan saw clearly that a tram was passing through an open-air stadium. A player who was training lost control of his feet and let a football smash against the car window. This was a small matter, but a portion of the students in the car found a common topic. Someone said to the guy wearing the baseball cap, the Pathfinder team's level this year is insane. They can even lose 0-3 to Yunchang. Lucky for them, they even found Clark. Clark, that one-man race. He only knows how to run 100 meters along the sidelines. He wants to take the opportunity to practice track and field. How much transfer fee did the track and field club give him? Hey, he ran almost 20 kilometers for the entire game. If you can do it, why don't you go up? Go up and weed. After one lap, the turf will be fine, but his ankle will be broken. That's right. Lando Field is too trashy. It doesn't match the school's position at all. We should find a more responsible sponsor. Is there anyone who wants to sign with me? The atmosphere in the car grew more and more lively. Many people, who had been silent the entire way, broke their silence at this time. They all participated in the discussion of the game. Some students had already signed on the school's message board. Some took the opportunity to collect the contact numbers of female students. They gained quite a lot. Luonan didn't care about this at first. He raised his eyes and wanted to return to his own mental world. But at this time, he saw Shuelei. He was also exchanging contact numbers with someone. They were discussing topics related to Clark's level. Luonan was inexplicably horrified. You know that guy? Of course I know. Clark? Kembo, the sports star of the school. He's a lightning bolt on the field. Rumor has it that he'll soon be selected for the City United team. I saw him compete at the beginning of school. His feet aren't as rough as others say. Shuelei responded, as if it was a matter of course. Then he was horrified. You don't know? There are posters of him all over the school building right now. Luonan gaped. He looked at the chattering peers on the car, and his heart inexplicably sank. Several seconds later, he opened his mouth and asked, You know what a jungle owl is too? Of course. Our school's team plays 10 days in the wilderness. They lost miserably in the fall competition last month. You met someone from the jungle owl? Who? No. Luonan muttered a few words in response. He turned his head, and his gaze passed through the window, unconsciously sweeping the campus. Shuelei was confused. What's wrong? Nothing. I just feel like I'm quite a homebody. Luonan laughed and didn't say anything more. Actually, he had lied once again. His evaluation of himself, right now, couldn't be described as a homebody. Shuelei concentrated on fighting. Peony was employed at the hidden indigo firm. The businesses they engaged in were a certain distance away from the world of normal people. But they didn't lose their perception of their surroundings. Luonan was far too boring in comparison. The trolley slowly arrived at the auditorium station. Students and passengers got on and off the trolley, and the topic of football had already vanished into thin air. It was as if nothing had happened. Luonan deliberately turned his head to look after getting off the trolley. Soon, his line of sight cut into the lively surroundings of the auditorium. He had been training his eye's orifice here a week ago. He was very familiar with every blade of grass and every tree. He had an idea of how many steps there were. The faces of the people who often moved around here were even a bit familiar to him. But that was all. After all, these were only his temporary observation targets. Deeper information was meaningless. Luonan had always understood things this way, but when he returned here today, he suddenly had a feeling. He was incompatible with this auditorium, with the surrounding plaza, and even with the entire campus. He was like this 2 months ago when he first entered the school. He was still like this now. This feeling wasn't too good. Luonan and Shuelei didn't waste any time. They directly entered the forest on the outskirts of the north bank. They made a few turns, and they arrived in front of Gear. The smell of smoke and fire from back then still lingered in this place. The construction team had already finished today's work by this time. They withdrew one after another, and the place became a bit more lively. Hu Huaying was already waiting in the lobby by the time Luonan arrived. Aside from him, the supervisor and the project manager were all here. It looked like they were treating today as an official inspection. Hu Huaying immediately introduced them to Luonan. Luonan nodded in greeting, but he didn't have any intentions of going deep into the conversation. He didn't immediately start the inspection either. Instead, he asked about Xie Junping. In the past, the young master of the Xie family was always at the forefront. Luonan really did miss him a bit when he was suddenly not around. With him here, they could chat a few dirty jokes. Wouldn't it be lively? Old Xie has been quite mysterious lately. It's probably because he's playing around with Sissy. He's fasting and cultivating. Luonan accidentally heard the biggest joke in Xia City. He couldn't help but grin. Hu Huaying couldn't help but laugh as well. He wakes up at 6 in the morning and sleeps at 9 in the evening. He's persisted for 5 days. Oh, this isn't simple. But having a regular lifestyle is a good thing. It looks like he's persevering. The sissy Du that Hu Huaying mentioned was the former president of the Mystic Arts Research Society, Du Yong. Luonan had only met him once, so he wasn't too familiar with him. He just knew that Du Yong was a bit neurotic. But he was a decent person. They chatted idly for a bit before talking about gear. The project manager maintained his silence this entire time. The supervisor explained things to Luo Nan, but Luo Nan didn't really listen. It was nothing more than equipment installation and wiring, maintenance of various systems, and so on. Luo Nan grunted and grunted in response. He wasn't a professional, so he was entrusted to the supervisor according to the contract. However, it wasn't just the construction team. The supervisor's spy operation was also flying. Chapter 341. Luo Nan recognized that gear was currently attracting flies. In Acumen College, gear possessed a bit of a mysterious color. Even Xie Junping, a layman, had heard of names like the Ritual Society. He said that it was very suitable for carrying out mystic rituals. Then there was Luo Nan. It was hard for the professionals and experts to not feel that something was fishy. Actually, the Xia City branch had already made an assessment before the spies from all walks of life flooded in. They also said that the structure of the building was out of the ordinary. As for where the specific beauty lay, they were unable to come to a conclusion for a while. Because of this, He Yuan suggested that Luo Nan follow the principle of opening up is better than blocking, and let the spies in first. This way, they could not block everything, and let the people from all walks of life speculate in their hearts. The matter of headquarters could serve as a warning. This was a smart method, but it was also a cowardly move. Luo Nan acted according to He Yuan and the others' instructions for a week. He turned a blind eye to the spies' actions on the surface, but in reality, he was fretful in his heart. He could not stop the spies from all sides. He could only swallow his anger. But this did not mean that Luo Nan would treat the spies well. He already had a plan in mind. He let the supervising engineer do as he pleased, and let him wander around the underground space. He did not express any opinions or emotions for over half an hour. The sky was already dark. The supervising engineer and the project manager were completely unable to grasp Luo Nan's pulse. They were unable to continue. Hu Huaying could roughly see Luo Nan's attitude at this time. She stood up and said a few words, sending the supervising engineer and the project manager away. After waiting for the outsiders to get lost, Hu Huaying asked, "Nanster, is this project not to your liking?" Luo Nan shook his head. "I don't understand professional matters, but there's nothing to be dissatisfied with. Let them continue to repair it. You know, this place is of great importance to me. It would be fine if nothing happened, but if something did happen, I need to take some precautions. When that happens, I won't be able to find outsiders." Old Xie said that this construction didn't restore the previous defense system. He wanted you to personally design it. You certainly don't lack professionals. Hu Huaying giggled, more or less flattering him. Last week at Ocean Sky Cloud City, he saw with his own eyes how the arrogance of the young master of the He family was suppressed. No, he wasn't suppressed. The flames were extinguished on their own. The group of people surrounding Luo Nan were all very mysterious. Perhaps they had great backgrounds. Especially He Donglo's older sister. According to their later understanding, she really was He Donglo's older sister. She had just retired from the special forces and returned home. Who would have thought that she and Luo Nan would play together? In the past, she was a bit puzzled by Xie Junping's attitude of trying to befriend Luo Nan in every possible way. But now it was different. If he was given a chance, he would be 10 times more enthusiastic than Xie Junping. No matter what was said or done, the Xie family was still the #1 business group in Xia City. The Hu family was a level lower. If the Hu family worked hard to catch up, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the Hu family worked 10 times as hard as they could. At this point he had another thought. Old Xie didn't take good care of this person, and instead went to play mysticism with Sissy. Was he relying on his relationship with him to stabilize? Or was he trying to cater to his preferences in another direction? While he was thinking, they walked out of the fire escape and entered an open space. The light was dim. There were no lights to illuminate the place. A dark and gloomy sky hovered above their heads. Hu Huaying had been leaning here for several days now. She had a clear understanding of the architectural layout of gear, and the maintenance process. She swept a glance and said, "The atrium here is a bit messy. It's hard to avoid some junk falling down during the repairs. We have to wait until the end to clean it up." Luonan grunted and raised his head to look up. Gear had 7 floors underground, 4 floors above ground, and a half-sealed rooftop. There were a total of 12 floors. Right now they were on the lowest floor, looking at the ceiling of the atrium that was several dozen meters high. The architectural layout of Gear was different from the vulgar. Only an architect or an insider like Luonan could understand how extraordinary it was. And the directions and angles were all different. However, for many people, the deepest impression they had of Gear was the almost paranoid circular, stacked nested structure inside Gear. And the most eye-catching of the series of structures was the perfectly straight atrium that connected all the floors before Luonan's eyes. The atrium of Gear was different from most similar structures. The atrium of Gear was located on the westernmost side of the building. Its edge was the outer wall of the building. Its height exceeded 50 meters, and the area it occupied wasn't small. If the lighting wasn't turned on, and the angle of sunlight wasn't suitable, the pitch-black hole would be very frightening when looking down from above. Thinking about it in a crooked way, this was a good place to commit suicide. The outer wall of the atrium was surrounded by high-strength bulletproof glass, most likely to prevent similar situations from occurring. Every floor didn't leave a single gap. Jumping down really required skill. Luonan stood at the bottom of the atrium and raised his head to look at the sky. He could see the evening sky. The dusky sky was smeared with colorful paint. Aside from a sliver of the setting sun, the only thing that could be seen was the lights of the metropolis. The atrium had a diameter of 12 meters. It was already extremely spacious, but due to the height issue, it appeared rather slender no matter what angle one looked at it from. Only when one reached the bottom and personally experienced it would one know just how enormous this space was. Luonan smiled at Shuelei. "You can train here every day. The air isn't stuffy, right? When it rains, you can seal off the rooftop. It's more convenient than outside." "I can give it a try." Shuelei grinned. He had been treating himself as a bodyguard ever since he entered Gear. He didn't utter a single word and was extremely vigilant. He even operated the testing equipment provided by the society in secret, in case the construction team left behind some things that couldn't see the light of day. Right now he was chatting with Luonan, and he finally relaxed. He imitated Luonan and raised his head to look at the sky. He suddenly had a strange thought. The rooftop ceiling platform should also be made of glass. It's like an astronomical telescope. Actually, it does have this function. Hu Huaying remembered that there was information about this in the information. She immediately showed off. It can be realized through an internal mounting module. The equipment room is on the 6th floor underground. Of course, special lenses are needed. The modification can be completed in an hour. Of course, this telescope can't be turned. It can only look at a small area above our heads. An hour? Shuelei was a bit moved. He really wanted to see it. Hu Huaying hurriedly added, "It can't be done now. This function was remodeled in 91. Not long after it was completed, the order club collapsed. The newly purchased equipment was completely sold off. They lost several $100,000 after depreciation." "Are you playing with me?" Shuelei rolled his eyes. Before he could say anything, Luonan sneered, drawing legs on a snake. Hu Huaying was stunned. Honestly speaking, she didn't understand what Luonan meant by these words. But it didn't affect her from echoing. "So the snake's claws have been chopped off." Luonan didn't say anything. He looked up at the night sky above his head in silence. It was unknown where his thoughts drifted. Hu Huaying and Shuelei locked gazes. They were just about to speak when Luonan raised his arm to look at his wristband. His brows furrowed. "Someone's looking for me." "Third bro, you chat with Shuelei first. I'm going to take a call." Hu Huaying really wanted to agree. Then she would drag Luonan and Shuelei out for a meal and a game to strengthen their friendship. But she thought about it again. Luonan had an introverted temperament. He couldn't be impatient when it came to making friends. This was to avoid going overboard. She immediately said, "You go do what you need to do." I won't stay any longer. Sure enough, Luonan didn't urge her to stay. He nodded and thanked her once more. Then he hurriedly walked into the fire escape passageway. It looked like this was a very private call. Shuelei and Hu Huaying rode the elevator together to send Luonan off. Soon peace was restored in the atrium. Luonan waited for the elevator to go up. He didn't turn on his wristband as he stood in the fire escape passageway. Instead, he squinted his eyes, and his telepathic thoughts leaped out. He arrived at a business hotel several dozen kilometers away. His temporary partner, Peony, had used the rubber band to give Ink a special stimulation. Luonan sensed it. As for the reason, it was very simple. The meeting was adjourned. Luonan looked at his watch. It was around 6 o'clock in the evening. The meeting had been going on for nearly 9 hours. Peony walked into the elevator with Ink still holding onto her shoulder. They looked quite compatible. But it was different from when they came. There was another person in the elevator. It was none other than Long Seven. The two didn't have any intentions of communicating further. Long Seven was paying more attention to Ink in the elevator. He exited the elevator and went to the underground parking lot. He walked straight to the front row of parking spaces. There was a supercar there. It wasn't low-key at all. Luonan vaguely remembered that this was where Old Jean parked his car. Where did the man in the car go? Old Jin's commoner SUV drove in right when he was baffled. It flashed its lights twice and stopped in front of Peony at the elevator entrance. Clearly, he hadn't waited a day in vain. He had bought a Big Mac from who knows where, and he was eating it with relish. Peony let Ink go to the front passenger seat while she sat in the back. Old Jean opened the window, dispersing the smell in the car. Then the car started, but he heard Long Seven call out at this time. See you tomorrow. Peony waved her hand rather reservedly, and the car soon drove out of the underground parking lot. Only now did Peony get down to business. She spoke quickly. The meeting will continue tomorrow. I will send the relevant information and meeting records to the internal cloud space. Please check and receive them. Luonan actually wanted to seriously ask about the situation at the meeting, but he thought of Zhang Yingying's previous attitude. He hesitated a bit, but in the end he didn't say much. The car entered a state of silence. Now it was Old Jin's turn to ask, "Where do I get off?" Luonan remembered that Peony seemed to be someone from Acumen College. It was impossible for this woman not to be suspicious when he got off the car with her. Since the firm couldn't hide his true identity, he might as well play it to the end. I'll leave once we're out of the parking lot. Then see you tomorrow. No one exchanged pleasantries. They waited for the car to drive onto the main road, and Ink jumped out of the car. It spread its wings and flew into the night sky. At the same time, Luonan logged into the cloud space over at Gear. He looked through the meeting records. He had gotten the relevant documents from Trigate Corporation. This company did things fairly properly. At the very least, the meeting records were clean and clear. Peony even marked them one by one, highlighting the key points. Luonan really didn't know where she got the energy and time. Aside from the information, she even wrote a short report, introducing the situation of the participants. The focus of attention was naturally Long Seven. Peony had already come to a preliminary conclusion, but the point of entry was that fashionable ear. In Peony's report, the earring was made from some sort of superplastic memory alloy material. It could greatly deform under high temperatures. It was a mechanical key favored by burners. In other words, Long Seven was very likely to be a deep blue walker. Plus, this person was relatively familiar with Xia City. He also had the special ability of radiation decontamination. Peony had already locked onto her target. Chapter 342. It had only been a few hours, and he had been skinned? Luonan grinned and looked at Peony's report in detail. The report simply indicated that Snake 7 had once appeared in the Society's operation to rescue Rue 1. Of course, he was on the opposing side of the Society. Luonan didn't have a deep impression of this person. After all, 7 or 8 deep blue walkers had gathered that night, and there were many casualties. Only the heavens knew who was who. The only memory he had was a review report after the operation. There was this code name on it. representing that this person was deeply involved in the conflict. That was all. Right now, Luonan didn't have emotions so it was him. His attention was a bit distracted. Thinking deeper, there was no reason for the Snake 7 or Dragon 7 to not use similar methods when they returned. The focus of their analysis was certainly peony, but as an eye-catching symbol inked the giant crow, would most likely be used as a starting point. Could it be concealed? Ink was quite high profile that night, especially in the first half of the night. There were more than 1 or 2 eyewitnesses in the underground fighting arena. As Luonan furrowed his brows in thought, a refresh symbol appeared in the cloud space document. With a light tap, the entire document was updated. The amount of text instantly increased by quite a bit. Upon closer inspection, there was even more detailed information regarding Snake 7 listed out in the document. So Luonan knew that Snake 7 was a very talented ability user. But he was determined to become a Deep Blue Walker. He joined Quantum Corporation of his own accord and became a special model tester at a young age. Later, he strongly requested to join the operation team and transferred to the Sky Blue Security Company. As for what his personality was like, how he handled things, and how his family relations were, they were all covered in the document. Luonan originally thought that this character was quite mysterious, but in the blink of an eye, he was exposed to the light of day. There was practically nowhere he could hide. Strands of cold air seeped through Luonan's teeth. His heart felt cold. He withdrew from the cloud space, his mind a bit chaotic. But one thing was very clear. With his current fame, special position, and use, every intelligence agency would absolutely not let him go. One small clue would reveal the general trend. From the perspective of Snake 7's fate, perhaps every intelligence agency had a document regarding him on their desks right now. They were constantly updated. Each and every one of his actions would be like Snake 7's. He would be completely exposed to the eyes of others. There would be no more secrets to speak of. Luonan stood at the bottom of the atrium in a daze. A few dozen seconds later, his wristband vibrated. Shuele called. "I'm training in the open space in front of gear. Just give me a shout when you get home." "Oh," Luonan responded subconsciously. Then he came back to his senses and expressed his refusal. "It's already dinner time. You can go back. You don't need to wait for me." School had already ended. The reason Shuele said this was because he understood Luonan's pace of life. Luonan's training time was around this time every day. He needed to attend classes and study, so he made up his mind to stick to it. "It's so boring to go home alone. It's better to go together." Luonan spat. "Then we'll separate at the school gate." Right now Luonan was living at his aunt's house, while Shuele was in the Twin River district. One went east, and the other went west. It would be strange if they went the same way. At the end of the day, Shuele was still focused on being a bodyguard, afraid that shameless people like the headquarters would appear again. Shuele also felt that it was quite ridiculous, so he asked, "Speaking of which, when are you going to be independent? You don't have to go to the hospital for treatment now." "Auntie isn't afraid that I'll go for treatment. She's afraid that I'll suddenly go in for treatment again." Luonan knew that his health credit had gone bankrupt, and he was unable to explain the concept of the coupling of soul and flesh to Mrs. Luo Shuqing. He could only place his hopes on someone else. "My cousin will be back next week. I'll give it another try with her attracting the firepower." The two chatted a bit more, and Shuele went to practice boxing. Luonan was actually quite envious of Shuele's current state. This week, with Xie Juanping's help, Shuele had already changed his relationship with the society. Shuele had no worries in the future. Aside from being Luonan's bodyguard every day, Shuele had a large amount of time to spend on martial cultivation. Compared to his close friend, Luonan's mood fluctuated quite a bit. Especially now, he was stimulated by the intelligence file. His heart was quite restless, and he didn't have the mind to think about practical matters. He paced a few steps under the atrium before raising his head. In a daze, the perfectly straight atrium and the ring-shaped night sky were like a prison, sealing him inside. No, that's not right. How could there be a prison in his mother's work? Luonan's thoughts changed when he thought of his mother. He He looked at the atrium again. The structure was one and the same. It went from the bottom to the top, as if it led to the depths of the starry sky. It was limitless. When all was said and done, those thoughts just now were born from fear in his heart, drawing a prison. Luonan shook his head and scattered the illusions. He looked at the time. There were still a few minutes until the appointed time. He sat down cross-legged and recalled the breathing technique personally taught to him by Gym Master Xiao. He tried to calm his mind. Several breaths later, the tides of his mind did indeed calm down a bit. He even closed his eyes and began to move his mind. The energy within his body was polished, and the heart lantern of the eye's orifice burned with brilliance. Gradually, the distracting thoughts in his mind were burned to nothing. According to coupling theory, there were two relatively complete gears in the structure of Luonan's body and soul. One was soul strength born from formatting theory. It had long since surpassed the limits of what the fleshly body could endure. Its power was great and difficult to control. Luonan relied on the hollow depository function of the external neuron to form a stable structure. Even so, it overflowed outwards at every moment. It was like an iceberg towering above the vast ocean. It was vast and majestic, and the pressure it exerted was extreme. Luonan gave it a name. It was called the God Gear. The other was the structure of the eye's orifice. Xiao Xinyu imparted a technique that relied on the natural wonders of the human body. It also happened to borrow Luonan's special circumstances to construct a brand new medium for transferring and refining soul strength. It formed the heart lantern of the eye's orifice and stimulated the potential of the human body. Luonan called it the body gear. According to Gym Master Xiao's words, the cultivation of the eye's orifice was only a beginning in the cultivation of the fleshly body. Compared to the towering iceberg and vast ocean of the God Gear, the eye's orifice could only be described as a small reservoir. It played an auxiliary role. The God Gear and the body gear built an embryonic order frame within Luonan's body. They meshed with each other through the method of coupling, influencing each other. Though the frame was formed, it was still simple and crude. It relied more on external objects. Without the suppression of the external neuron, it was guaranteed that Luonan would be instantly faced with a calamity. Even with the external neuron suppressing him, electricity and fire flowed between the God Gear and the body gear. Their energies clashed, and several thunderclouds and storms swept through every day. It was hard for outsiders to understand the suffering within. It was precisely these dangers hidden deep within Luonan's body that left no leeway for trial and error. There were no sentiments to speak of. They forced Luonan to use the most focused attitude to carefully cultivate his foundation, to fix the fragile balance bit by bit. As long as he began to cultivate, all trivial and distracting thoughts would be annihilated into a puff of smoke. It was quite worthwhile to use them to dispel negative emotions. Luonan no longer had the concept of time once he entered the meditative state. Fortunately, Luonan remembered that he still had training classes to attend. He only did a bit of maintenance on the structure of the eye's orifice. He dissolved the overly powerful interference power of electricity and fire, and then he finished his homework. His senses were exceptionally sharp when he entered the meditative state. His mind was tranquil, and all the surrounding information entered his mind. He felt a marvelous sound seep into his ears. It was like the fine ticking of the minute and second hands of a clock. It rotated in circles without beginning and without end. Luonan was not surprised at all. From his perspective, this was the breathing of gear. The building had 12 floors above and below the ground. Especially on the ground, including the atrium, there were 15 main halls. It was like a well-adjusted machine. Every part worked smoothly, and the teeth meshed together. Only then could there be such a harmonious rhythm. From Luonan's perspective, this was the sound of nature. It was the reward for his earnest cultivation. He subconsciously wore a smile on his face as he listened to this clear and orderly rhythm. However, just a few seconds later, there was a noise that made a sizzling sound. At first, it was just a single noise that suddenly affected the beat. But a few seconds later, the noise arose one after another. It was like the sudden insertion of dry and hoarse croaks during a band's performance. The noise rose and fell at random, turning a perfectly good performance into a nightmare. Luonan suddenly opened his eyes. The sound of nature was no longer there, but the noise still existed. It was layer upon layer of crisscrossing radio waves. The source came from every corner of the building: cameras, bugs, optical cables, antennas. There were all sorts of forms. They gathered all sorts of information and transmitted it out. They were like pairs of cold and gloomy eyes, spying on Luonan's every move from every angle. It was like he was in a prison. Luonan raised his head. The darkness could not obstruct the strengthened vision of the heart lantern of the eye's orifice. Separated by the integrated glass, a certain burglar camera on the 3rd floor of the basement was pointed at him. It was done openly. There was more than one monitoring device working in the surroundings. Luonan pursed his lips. He wanted to get angry, but he inexplicably felt that this was absurd and ridiculous. The corner of his lips unconsciously curled up. He was just worried that Long Seven's misfortune would fall on his head. He never thought that his thoughts would become a prophecy. Hey hee, what should come would come. Luonan squeezed out a dry voice from his mouth. The negative emotions that he had just dispelled were like a storm that suddenly descended. Rolling thunderclouds crackled as they assaulted his mind. Bang! The burglar camera on the 3rd floor of the basement exploded into pieces. Similar shattering sounds rang out from every corner of the building at practically the same time. Of course, there was also the muffled sound of tripping brakes. Direct methods brought about crude consequences. The sparse lighting within the building of gear was instantly extinguished. Then the central control system operated spontaneously, activating the backup circuitry. But unfortunately it failed. The listening devices were so concentrated that even the backup system was hard-pressed to escape. Luonan stood within the darkness, coldly feeling everything. But then Shuelei's phone call came in the next moment. He was so nervous that his voice changed. Report your location. Mentally connect. I'm fine. Luonan didn't know how to explain things to Shuelei. His wristband vibrated once more, and the central control system activated manual operation mode. It asked him if he wanted to use the maintenance robots to carry out emergency repairs. Luonan agreed in passing and found a reason. The quality of those people's work is abysmal. Yeah, that's it. And at this time, the hex ear vibrated. On the psychic wave network, Bamboo Pole followed the teaching plan and went online on time to greet Luonan. This was the usual procedure, but today's message was a bit odd. Chapter 343. Luonan was stunned by the inexplicable message, but he soon connected it with the unforeseen event from before. How did he know? They're spying on me. Oh, I think they told me about it a few days ago. The direct logic aroused his anger, but a portion of his blurry memories became clear. The two sides collided, turning into a wave of meaningless emotional turmoil. Yes, He Yuan had proposed to install monitoring and alarm equipment in gear at the beginning of the Xia City branch's testing. This was to deal with unusual situations. Luonan agreed at the time. Bamboo Pole was responsible for the installation, and he even integrated the control system into his wristband. This was great. When Bamboo Pole lost his temper, he didn't differentiate between friend and foe. He killed them all. Luonan wanted to leave a message in reply, but he didn't know what to say. He only said a few useless words after a while. It's nothing. Hee, if it's nothing then it's nothing. Are we still going to class today? Bamboo Pole's attitude really wasn't that of a qualified teacher. He had always been like this. The training courses arranged by He Yuan had been going on for nearly a month now. Papercut's soul strength activation techniques had become extremely simple due to Luonan's achievements in coupling ability. He was the first to finish. He Yuan's world order in and out of the psychic wave network had finished 2 days ago. Crag Burst and Red Fox's practical courses needed to be adjusted due to the changes in the situation, including Luonan's increase in ability. They had yet to officially begin. Only Bamboo Pole's Notes on the Most Important People of the World class was still progressing steadily. Emotional turmoil wasn't a reason to refuse class. Luonan replied, I'm on. Can we start now? No problem. Bamboo Pole immediately skipped over the unpleasant matters. As usual, he sent over a set of pictures of people, videos, and other image materials. He confirmed the main content of today's class. And then he activated the video call function. He raised his hand in greeting, and then he started chatting face-to-face with Luo Nan. Bamboo Pole was the only one who spoke most of the time. The content was probably, "Don't be fooled by his sanctimonious appearance. In fact, his lovers are all beautiful. Don't be surprised." This was Bamboo Pole's usual teaching method. It was known as teaching through fun. This bro was the most knowledgeable fellow Luo Nan had ever seen. He usually presented himself as a hacker, and he conveniently searched for all sorts of beautiful women. But he had deep attainments in religion, history, mystic arts, and so on. He was also a master paparazzi. His class was mainly about characters. He would only talk about 2 or 3 characters in each class, sometimes even just one. He would talk about official matters, trivial matters, news, gossip, and so on. There were many different levels and angles. Often after a class, the characters he talked about would stand out and be hard to forget. But in terms of progress, it was really slow. Looking at the course plan, He Yuan's course capacity was about the same as his. However, the former's course had already ended, and Bamboo Pole's 100 characters hadn't even talked about half of them. Bamboo Pole said bluntly, "If you learn half of these courses, if you're really interested, you'll find out for yourself. Even if you don't want to learn, you'll learn it anyway. If you're really not interested, you can just treat it as idle chatter and have some fun. This way, the curriculum can be long or short, and it can be adjusted at any time." He knew very well that Luo Nan's mood wasn't right today, so his lecture was relatively simple. The content of the lecture didn't unfold. In the end, he even took the initiative to ask, "Why don't we stop here first?" Luo Nan woke up from his absent-minded state. He knew that he wasn't paying attention. He was quite embarrassed, so he promptly apologized. Bamboo Pole responded with a beaming smile. "No need to be so formal. Actually, I'm just an intelligence agent that serves the boss. I'm in charge of pushing information. If the boss has time, then I'll report a bit more information. If he doesn't have time, then I'll report a bit less. The boss has been quite busy lately, right?" Luo Nan was helpless. The group of people who participated in the Frost River reality incident would call him boss every now and then. This was originally Red Fox's way of mocking him and He Yuan, but it had grown louder and louder these days. The malice had been erased, and it had become a nickname that everyone knew. For a mischievous person like Bamboo Pole, he wouldn't feel comfortable if he didn't call him a few times a day. Luo Nan could only ignore him, but Bamboo Pole was right. Luo Nan had been courting death these past few days. He had found Worker Zhai to be his tutor, learning the relevant knowledge of engineering. The amount of time and energy required to have some accomplishments in this major subject was far greater than a package of crash courses. However, his bad mood today had nothing to do with the pressure of learning. Right now, Luo Nan wasn't in the mood to attend classes. He really wanted to communicate with someone, but he didn't know where to start. He subconsciously flipped through the information on the person he had just obtained. This person's name and past deeds were all forgotten after a single glance. However, Bamboo Pole's habit of organizing the information from multiple angles and layers made Luo Nan make some associations. How many bugs were piled up in this information? The corner of Luo Nan's lips twitched. Does every famous person do research like this? Most of it is public information. Of course, a lot of it is the sweat and blood of paparazzi. Bamboo Pole raised an eyebrow. You're only average in this course. Otherwise, you could use it as a template. It wouldn't be a problem for you to become the #1 paparazzi in a large entertainment media company. Luo Nan suddenly had a strange thought. I can be considered a famous person now, right? To a certain extent, yes. Then, Brother Bamboo Pole, what kind of person am I? How do you research me? Luo Nan actually wanted to know just how much he had exposed to the various intelligence agencies. However, his ability to express himself was truly worrisome. It caused Bamboo Pole's understanding to be a bit off. Yo, you feel confused about life. You want to do a self-analysis? Luo Nan wanted to correct Bamboo Pole, but he had second thoughts. Zhang Yingying's words had made his mind restless before he came to gear. His terrible mood had been buried ever since then. It would be good if he could get to the bottom of it. You can say that. On the other side of the screen, Bamboo Pole sat on an ergonomic chair. He adjusted himself into a comfortable position. I've mentioned the method of researching people to you before. It's nothing more than the three aspects of nature, society, and psychology. Luonan nodded. It was true that he had learned this before, but it was quite complicated when he actually began to delve into it. Bamboo Pole chuckled. You asked in a hurry. I wasn't prepared. However, since you asked, let's treat this matter as material. Let's do a simple analysis. Okay. Luonan was indifferent. Let's first talk about your problem. A normal person, a person of society, has an instinctive mentality of privacy and a mentality of vigilance. People pay attention to other people's evaluations of themselves, but they very rarely take the initiative to ask others to judge them, unless they want to show off, or they lack self-confidence. This is the meaning of asking for guidance. And all of these are considered morbid. Luonan grunted and couldn't help but laugh. Let's just ask for guidance. It looks like the symptoms are a bit lighter. Bamboo Pole shook his head. There's no need to ask me. Ask yourself. Ask yourself right now. Ask yourself. How is your body's condition under natural conditions? Is it vigorous like a dragon or fierce like a tiger? Or do you have a hidden illness? Be frank. Your body hasn't completely recovered yet. Luonan couldn't do without the external neuron right now. The difference in scale between the God gear and the body gear was a stubborn illness. This was especially true for the uncontrollable growth of his mental strength. He still had no clue as to how to solve this problem. Fortunately, the number of human-faced arachnids that wandered through Xia City was gradually decreasing. Otherwise, Luonan might really explode if the wraith sign of the blood flame order doubled in hunting speed. He had learned the acupoint cultivation technique from Gym Master Xiao, but he was unable to digest it on a large scale. Bamboo Pole didn't ask further. He changed the angle. What's your situation like in terms of social conditions? This time Luonan didn't hesitate. He answered not good. Although he had the Xia City branch behind him, and quite a few friends, headquarters, Quantum Corporation, the Order of Justice, and the Blood Flame Order were all latent threats. If all of them were to explode, even 10 Luonans would turn to dust. In terms of psychological conditions, forget it. It's obvious. Bamboo Pole smacked his lips. There's a situation in all three major areas. The answer doesn't need to be said. Brother, to tell you the truth, the problem is heavy. Luonan didn't expect that this would be the result after a bit of analysis based on Bamboo Pole's template. Wasn't this completely warped? He forgot about the matter of the intelligence organization for a moment. He stared blankly for a moment before asking, how should I solve it? Bamboo Pole spread his hands. You want me to be your advisor? How can I be counted on to do something that even secretary he can't do? Luonan knew this, but he still wanted to ask, Brother Bamboo Pole, if you were in my position, what would you do? If I were you, I would turn around and leave. I would run as far as I could. I would hide as deep as I could. This is what they call a cicada shedding its carapace. Retreat in order to advance. Turn light into darkness. Forget it. I know you wouldn't do this. Just treat it like I'm talking nonsense. Bamboo Pole's mind was clear-headed from beginning to end. He sighed. How about this? I'll give you 2 examples for reference. I've talked about the first one before. Her Majesty Empress Wu. At the very beginning, when Her Majesty Empress Wu just made her debut, many people said that she was Wu Mengyang, that she amused people with her beauty. They said she was Wu Jiaoyi Empress Wu. They called Her Majesty Empress Wu all the way to Her Majesty Empress Wu, but she remained unmoved. It could be said that a rock doesn't turn in a flowing river. She's round on the outside but square on the inside. Round on the outside but square on the inside? Luonan instinctively felt that these words weren't right. Bamboo Pole insisted on his own opinion. Did you forget? I told you before. Her Majesty Empress Wu is very domineering, but she was able to maneuver freely in the past. Her methods were extraordinary. First, she borrowed President Ouyang's power, Then she became independent and established the hidden indigo firm. She recruited non-combatants. She never kept a low profile, but she never crossed the line. She has a multitude of talented people under her command. It's not like she didn't have enemies in Xia City before, including headquarters. Now she has either pacified them or swept them flat. No matter what the wind and waves are like, she remains unmoved. She steadily strengthens, finally becoming a great power. It's said that her actions are like heaven, and her people are like ghosts. She deeply understands the true essence of techniques, and power. Bamboo Pole was not stingy with his words of praise for Her Majesty Empress Wu. He was endless. This type of person who is as unmoving as a mountain can be said to be the path of an emperor. Some people think that the words Her Majesty Empress Wu are mocking, but I feel that it's quite appropriate. In my personal opinion, this is the most brilliant path. Luo Nan imagined Her Majesty Empress Wu's methods of maneuvering freely. He was fascinated for a time. This path is very difficult, right? Bamboo Pole laughed. She has a clear goal from the beginning. Her methods are incisive. She uses both the carrot and the stick. You can't learn it. It's too late for you to learn it. Luo Nan was speechless. I used this as an example to give you a benchmark. I used it as a reference. Let's talk about the second example. I haven't talked about it before, but you're certainly familiar with this person. She's your secretary. Chapter 344. Through the psychic wave network, Bamboo Pole looked straight at him and grinned. I won't say much about other things, but since you've attended both my class and Secretary He's class, don't you have any thoughts? Probably. Luo Nan's heart wasn't as hesitant as his mouth was. After all, He Yuan and Bamboo Pole were both teaching cultural classes, and their styles were completely different. In private, he couldn't help but make some comparisons. Bamboo Pole encouraged, Tell me. There was no need to say much about Bamboo Pole's teaching methods. As for He Yuan, Luo Nan thought for a bit and said, Sister Yuan teaches. All sorts of information is readily available at her fingertips. She covers a wide range of details, and the context is clear. She is very captivating. What else? His arguments are precise, and his words are eloquent. Furthermore, they are often sharp and penetrating to the bone. Most of the time, he points directly at the deeper business behind important events. The relationship between the secular world and the inner world, the traditional political structure, and the new powers of ability users, is clearly understood. Bamboo Pole's eyebrows twitched. What you've just said, I think I've done pretty well. Of course, I can forget about the righteous promise part. But don't just praise me. Do you think I don't have any flaws? Or is it something different from me? He saw that Luo Nan was a bit hesitant, so he urged Luo Nan with all his might. Relax. I won't blabber. Plus, even if I say it, people will be open-minded. They won't care. I don't know what's missing. In the end, Luo Nan was an honest child. He didn't want to gossip behind Luo Nan's back. He pondered for a while before saying, I'm different from you. The knowledge points in class are more concentrated, and the pace is much faster than yours. Bamboo Pole laughed heartily and clapped his hands. That's right. Luo Nan didn't understand what was so funny about this. Bamboo Pole reminded him further. Isn't the timetable he arranged for you for the same reason? From morning till night, you followed him closely? It's all right. It's not particularly tight. Besides, if I don't do this, how can I quickly grasp knowledge? Of course you think it's normal, because you and she are the same kind of person. They're all like a top bow. When they shoot out an arrow, it's sharp and indestructible. But what about during normal times? Luo Nan was slightly stunned. This was the first time he had heard someone place him on the same level as He Yuan. Bamboo Pole continued. No one in the branch can keep up with Secretary He's fast pace. It's as if there's a beast chasing after her. Ever since she had joined, she had assisted in the affairs of the branch and drawn up various systems. Of course it was good, but it was a loose association, and they weren't in a state of war. Who could persevere every day? Out of 100 people, 10 are used to it, 10 are persevering, 50 are slackers, and 30 are dragging us down. Before we can face the external enemies, we will collapse internally. Luonan seriously suspected that Bamboo Pole had seized the opportunity to ridicule him. As a hacker, this guy was naturally skeptical of all constraints. He was a standard anarchist, and he never hid this when he taught. But Luonan really admired one thing about Bamboo Pole. Ridicule was ridicule, but Bamboo Pole and He Yuan were the best partners in these operations. Their tacit understanding was the highest. We are talking about an example. Bamboo Pole adjusted his posture on the ergonomic chair and said helplessly, "In a sense, people like Secretary He are very self-centered. Don't doubt me, I'm talking about you. Unconsciously or unconsciously, you always think that the earth will rotate according to your rhythm." Luonan, who was self-centered, could only listen. "Let's not talk about it. Secretary He is actually a great person. She has a bit of a messiah mentality. She always feels that her way of doing things is good for everyone. She has a sense of responsibility for all living beings under the heavens. Perhaps with her family background, she really does know more secrets, dangers, and unspeakable difficulties than we do. But for a hopeless fellow like me, she's a bit boring. I can't raise any interest in pursuing her." Bamboo Pole's eyes slanted as he spoke to this point. "What about you?" The silence lasted for a moment. Luonan was baffled. "Why aren't you talking?" Bamboo Pole spread his hands. "I'm asking you. You're much more autistic than Secretary He, and her goals are clearer than yours. Her techniques are more superb, and her mind is clearer. She knows her own shortcomings, and she is constantly improving. But you're different. You're only 16 years old, right? You're underage, immature, and your temperament isn't set. You have a head full of bizarre thoughts. Don't say it out loud. Isn't it tiring to use your brain to guess?" Luonan's lips twitched. This wasn't the first time he had heard such an evaluation, but it was rare for Bamboo Pole to use an example as a foil. Luonan felt a bit sorry for He Yuan. Just as he was about to speak, Bamboo Pole raised his hand. "There's no need to say things like justifying formatting theory and protecting my mother's work." Then what else was there to say? Luonan choked in an instant. Bamboo Pole stared at him for a long time before sighing. "You don't have any other goals?" Luonan imitated him and spread his hands. "Just these aren't enough? What else do you want?" Bamboo Pole sighed once more. "Isn't this enough? Huh? What's there to dissect? You've said a long string, but the conclusion is already very clear. You and Secretary He are the same kind of people. You both live your days with your bowstrings stretched taut. Your goals are the source of your pressure. This is because those things are very hard to deal with. They are very hard to achieve." Luonan didn't like hearing these words. It's very hard to achieve. As long as it involves confrontation, it's very hard. Bamboo Pole took care of Luonan's mood. He erased a key phrase and highlighted another. "Who are the people standing against you? If the disparity is too great, the harder you work, the greater the pressure. Unless you possess the ability to flatten everything, or at the very least, you have the ability to make most people compromise. Just like Her Majesty Empress Wu." Luonan was silent. Even Her Majesty Empress Wu rarely directly confronts a certain colossus. For her, growing and strengthening is her #1 priority. She takes the initiative. She prioritizes things. She has to do things step by step. It doesn't matter if she takes a few detours. Secretary He's route is very clear. It's to integrate the society's stragglers and stragglers. Perhaps her methods are worth discussing, but she has a strong backbone. She has many resources, and her selfishness is even less. What about you? You charge your way towards your goal. You flatten all the traps and mechanisms. Fortunately, you're a stubborn piece of iron. You'll treat ordinary checkpoints as hammering blows. If it were someone else, they would have long since been smashed into meat paste. But in the future, will Quantum Corporation, the Order of Justice, and those people from headquarters continue to hammer you? Or will they set up a blast furnace and melt you in one breath? Luonan's eyelids twitched. This was the situation he was worried about. However, Bamboo Pole's words seemed to have deviated once more. He was no longer simply analyzing Luonan. Luonan was still uncertain, so he followed along with Bamboo Pole's tone and asked, Then Brother Bamboo Pole, what do you think I should do next? Only when the words left his mouth did Luo Nan remember that he had asked Bamboo Pole for guidance not too long ago. Back then, Bamboo Pole had refused, and Her Majesty Empress Wu and He Yuan were two examples. Sure enough, Bamboo Pole extended a hand and pointed at him. You're asking me this again. What's the point of asking me? I dare to bet that with your temper, no matter what extravagant flowery words other people say, you'll still follow your temper when things come to a head. Flatten. Whether it's a hammer or a blast furnace in front of you, there's no difference. Luonan really didn't have much hope in his control. There was just one point where he admitted that Bamboo Pole was wrong. I don't want to play with Flatten. Who wouldn't be happy if they could reach their goal more easily? But when things come to a head, I have no choice. Then how do you get yourself to the point where things come to a head time and time again? Luonan really did consider this question seriously for a moment. Since when did he always fall into a situation where there was no way out? He didn't obtain an answer, but there was one thing that was very clear. If these days continued, the times where things came to a head would grow more and more frequent. The opportunities for him to make choices would grow smaller and smaller until there were none. Bamboo Pole looked at Luonan's expression and could roughly understand Luonan's current bewilderment. So, I'll still say the same thing. If I were you, I would certainly run as far as I can. It's not because of fear or cowardice. It's because you have enough space to act as a buffer. Only then can you grow and strengthen. Only then can you have the leeway to choose. That's impossible. Luonan didn't even need to think before he refused. Bamboo Pole had expected this long ago. His eyes didn't even blink as he immediately said, "Then you need a shield and a rein. The shield will give you a chance to catch your breath on the battlefield. The rein will strangle your neck when you're hot-headed." Luonan blinked his eyes. "Brother Bamboo Pole, you can speak a bit more bluntly." Bamboo Pole rolled his eyes. "I've already spoken bluntly enough." "Fine. What I mean is that you need to find a backer." "Backer? Rely on who?" Bamboo Pole looked at him like he was looking at an idiot. "Who in Xia City can you rely on right now?" "President Ouyang." "Get lost, you idiot." Luonan grunted. He felt quite wronged. There were only two extraordinaries who could protect him in Xia City. What was wrong with him thinking of Ouyang Chun in the first instance? Luonan's thoughts spun again. Only then did he realize that the example that Bamboo Pole spared no effort in talking was absolutely not just for show. "You want me to rely on Her Majesty Empress Wu?" Luonan knew that he had finally guessed correctly when he saw Bamboo Pole's expression. However, he didn't quite understand Bamboo Pole's train of thought. What's the difference between President Ouyang and Her Majesty Empress Wu? Also, aren't I under their protection right now? The Xia City branch taking care of you is official business. Since it's official business, it will be restricted by procedures. Accordingly, there will certainly be flaws. The matter with headquarters is the best proof. The same reasoning can be used on President Ouyang, who let him be the president. Bamboo Pole used his finger to point at Luonan from afar. More importantly, in a loose organization like the society, there's no one who can control you. You can do stupid things, and there's no way to restrain you. He Yuan is quite suitable, but she's standing in the wrong position from the start. She's the boss's secretary and the like. It's so awkward. Luonan was a bit embarrassed. "Brother Bamboo Pole, you're an anarchist. Everything you say is controlled. Is that really good? At the very least, I never cause trouble." Bamboo Pole stabbed a knife into Luonan's chest and twisted it. "I rarely do stupid things. Even so, I sometimes find a place to rest and earn a bit of extra money." "Huh, idiot. I'm a lobbyist right now, Boss Luo." Chapter 345. Luonan bid farewell to Xue Lei at the school gates and took a car back home. The car he rode in was sent by the Xia City branch. The driver was a professional security guard with extraordinary strength. The two were not familiar with each other, so they did not talk much on the way. Luonan was the only one staring blankly most of the time. It was just as Bamboo Pole said. Today, Luonan had indeed become a lobbyist in addition to teaching. And the person who hired him was the legendary Her Majesty Empress Wu. Bamboo Pole was eloquent, and his persuasive skills were sufficient. Luo Nan was indeed a bit moved at the time, but the awkward thing was that he had pretty much forgotten all of these words by the time he got in the car. It was not that he was not attentive, but that he was overly nervous. Luo Nan had always been the focal point of the society during his time there, but this was the first time he had accepted a genuine recruitment like today. He lacked the relevant social experience. His mind was a complete mess of distracting thoughts when he encountered this matter. He did not know how to respond. So much so that Luo Nan remembered the most clearly not the benefits Her Majesty Empress Wu would give him. Instead, it was Bamboo Pole's words of consolation. Boss Luo, you are not of age yet, but you are already a complete member of society. Things like this are unavoidable. You can seek the opinions of others. Ask more. Refer more. Don't rush to make a judgment. Her Majesty Empress Wu went through me and not through Zhang Yingying, because that girl is too impatient. She wants to avoid playing the emotional card and affecting your judgment. These words were filled with sincerity, but the reason why Luo Nan remembered them was because Bamboo Pole's words, member of society, poked at his sore spot. Luo Nan opened the car window and rested his elbow on the window frame, feeling the incoming night wind. A moment later, he used his other hand to draw a diagram. It was a tetrahedron, and it was divided into 5 layers. According to formatting theory, this was the societal formatting diagram. From bottom to top, it was clearly divided into 5 layers: student, employee, technician, priest, and politician. This was the classification of the resources he controlled. It was barely possible to correspond to the outside society. Luo Nan still remembered his first conversation with Zhang Yingying on the ship Lanshan. He had solemnly vowed that he needed pressure and opportunity to enter a completely new circle to satisfy the needs of his rapid rise in social status. His voice was still in his ears. He had truly taken this step, but how could he have imagined that he would be at a loss today? He didn't think that his initial choice was wrong, but was this kind of passive situation inevitable? If one viewed life as a game, then the path he had chosen after his class advancement would definitely be a terrible one. Furthermore, there would be no save point, and he wouldn't be able to start all over again, nor would he be able to stop. Luo Nan had to chew on the bitter fruit of life, and he had reached a juncture. He had to make a decision. He could not stop moving forward. Luo Nan couldn't quite understand Her Majesty Empress Wu's thoughts. He was unable to guess the calculations within. He could only follow Bamboo Pole's advice and seek the opinions of others. The first person he thought of was He Yuan, but when he applied for the call, she should be dealing with some business and couldn't be distracted. She only left a message saying that she would contact him later. Luo Nan could only skip it for now. His thoughts swept through the list of friends in the Hexa, pondering over who he should consult. Zhang Yingying had to jump over first. Cragburst seemed to be making a move tonight as well. As for Octopus, Luo Nan had no confidence in his ability to express himself with words, so he simply turned them into words. He left a few messages for his friends, asking for advice. Not long after it was sent, the driver suddenly said, "Boss Luo, we're home." Luo Nan was stupefied for a moment. Only then did he realize that he had taken a bit too long to organize his words. The car had already driven to the entrance of the residential area. It was just past dinner time. There were quite a few residents strolling and exercising on the streets. "Thank you, Brother Chi." Luo Nan politely expressed his thanks and got off the car to head home. He only realized halfway there. When did he become accustomed to being addressed as Boss Luo? Luo Nan walked into the house. There was no one in the living room. Luo Nan called out, and his uncle, Mo Haihang, responded from the kitchen. "Oh Luo Nan, wait a moment. The food needs to be reheated." "Oh okay." It was already 8 o'clock in the evening. Dinner time had long passed. However, as long as his uncle was home, he would certainly reserve a portion for Luo Nan, the king of stomachs. Luo Nan first went to wash his face and used cold water to stimulate himself. When he returned to the living room, Mrs. Luo Shuqing was already sitting on the sofa in her home clothes. "Auntie!" Luo Nan rushed to greet her. He was most afraid of this person in the family. Luo Xuqing had her head lowered as she fiddled with her wristband. Luo Nan's heart thumped when he saw this scene. He immediately bypassed the minefield and headed to the dining room. But he was still too late. A cold and clear voice came from behind him. Did Emoya call yet? No. I haven't been in contact for the past 2 days. Maybe Emo Peng. Where is he? Luo Nan turned around. He didn't see the best shield, but this didn't prevent him from diverting the disaster. He went crazy outside. I hope he'll be back before 9. Mrs. Luo Xuqing's attention shifted a bit, but she soon locked onto her target. Has Emoya confirmed the specific time she'll be returning to Xia City? The words return to Xia City were remarkable. As the saying goes, no one knows a daughter better than a mother. Madame Luo Xuqing had already determined that even if her unfilial daughter returned from the music festival, she wouldn't return home for a while. After all, she would be gone for a month. Things had gotten out of hand. Luo Nan continued to play dumb. I haven't been in contact for the past 2 days. At most, I'll look at her circle of friends. Won't she be back after the music festival ends? Luo Xuqing raised her head to look at her nephew. In the end, she couldn't resist her doting heart. She sighed and didn't pursue the matter any further. Let's go eat. If there's nothing going on at school, we'll adjust the time for supplementary lessons. It's not good to eat too late. Luo Nan responded vaguely and quickly sat at the dining table. His uncle just happened to deliver the sliced beef with a small pancake. The pancake was wrapped with beef and scallions. The texture was firm and crisp. It was very chewy and went well with the rice. Luo Nan was half serious and half fake in order to avoid trouble. He buried his head in the food and didn't give his mouth any time to rest. His uncle sat on the other side of the dining table and sighed. It's fortunate that you're practicing martial arts. Otherwise, your body would be out of shape if you continued like this every day. This was a good topic. Luo Nan's mouth wasn't idle. He could only nod over and over. Aside from Emo Peng, no one in the family has ever been fat. If you have the ability, then feed that unfilial daughter into a pig. I want to see how she'll go wild in the outside world. Luo Xuqing was annoyed by being alone in the living room, so she came to the dining table. His uncle immediately shut his mouth and smiled, avoiding the frontal attack. Luo Xuqing knew that her husband had an impenetrable ability. Her gaze turned to a certain person, who was the easiest to bully. Luo Nan hated that he couldn't stuff the entire beef pancake into his mouth. But he had eaten too quickly just now. The previous roll had already entered his stomach. Right now there was a gap, and he couldn't avoid it. His brain heated up, and by some strange coincidence he self-destructed. Today, a friend's boss wants me to go work at her company. Chapter 346. Luo Nan regretted it the moment he spoke. Emoya must have secretly placed a curse on him. That's why he would ignore the consequences and step forward to block the bullet. No matter how much he regretted it, he could no longer swallow the words he had spoken. The consequences of his actions were immediately apparent. His uncle and aunt's gazes were directed at him at the same time. They were puzzled at first, but then they became vigilant. Your friend? Boss. What do I want you to do? What kind of company is that? There was a sequence of questions, but the meaning behind them was the same. Luo Nan knew that he had poked a hornet's nest. He was unable to explain why his family's introverted otaku would suddenly attract the interest of a social company. He could only bite the bullet and avoid the question. I haven't agreed yet. I'm afraid he's just saying it. Luo Xuqing stared into her nephew's eyes. The question now is, why is this company interested in you? Why can't she be interested in me? Luo Nan forced himself to be thick-skinned. He was prepared to pester her endlessly at any time. Luo Xuqing wanted to say more, but Mo Haiheng gestured for his wife to stop. He maintained his smile and said calmly, Let me ask, why didn't you agree? Is the pay not suitable, or the time does not permit? Yes. Mo Haiheng didn't wait for Luo Nan to finish speaking. Your cautious attitude is correct. Regardless of age, as long as there was a labor relationship, working hours and pay were very important. How much did they pay you? Luo Nan was stupefied when it came to the specifics. He stared blankly for a moment before replying. We haven't reached that step yet. If there's a need to talk later, you might as well ask your aunt to be your advisor. She's a senior HR officer in a big company, and she specializes in this. She's experienced in scamming people and getting scammed. Luo Nan buried his head in eating. He responded vaguely. Oh, okay. Luo Shuqing glared at her husband, but as a married couple for decades, she knew some tricks very well, so she immediately changed her words. Working and being independent is a good thing. What's the name of that company again? I can help you find out the bottom line first. Other things aside, you should be able to grasp the average salary. If you negotiate with them, you will be able to seize the initiative. She had been in the HR business for many years. In terms of human resources management, she had a wide network of contacts and was skilled in the business. He had already opened up a professional search software as he spoke. He could find all the official businesses of Xia City on it. The couple looked amiable on the outside, but in reality, they were pressing him. Luo Nan's brain was no longer working in circles. He wasn't good at lying to begin with, so he began to leak out. I think she's called Blue something? Hidden Indigo Company. It should be an office. Luo Nan half buried his face into his rice bowl. Otherwise, the cold sweat on his forehead would be seen clearly. Now he knew why he was in such a difficult situation in just a month, and why he had made so many enemies. This impulse was too deadly. Luo Shuqing quickly found out the results. Hidden Indigo Firm. Oh, there's registration information and tax payment records. It's mainly engaged in legal consulting business. It seems to be fairly formal. What's the name of the boss who recruited you? Wu. Ahem, I only know her surname is Wu. Wu Jiong. Luo Shuqing read out the name of the legal representative of the firm. For a moment, the restaurant was filled with awkwardness. Long live Her Majesty Empress Wu. Luo Nan let out a long breath. Now he had a handle. Wait, samurai? Why not just call her Wu Zetian? Mo Haiheng tapped his fingers on the table and frowned. Of course, there were many unreliable parents in this world. There were all sorts of strange names for their children. But there were extremely few who would specifically use the name of a unique and unmatched character in history. More importantly, this violated the current laws and regulations. Not to mention anything else, it was impossible for the Social Authority Department he worked in to pass such an application for information. But the current situation was that this Mrs. Wu Zhao had used this name in an imposing manner. Moreover, she had used this name to register an official office. Based on his years of experience working in the SCA, he could tell that Wu Zhao, this office, and the corresponding registration information were all fake from start to finish. It could even be said that she was making a mockery of public authority. Or, she was a very powerful person who could openly violate certain social rules. Of course, she must be very willful. Mo Haiheng was unable to immediately verify these judgments, nor did he say them out loud. His mind spun like lightning, but his face remained smiling as he asked. She took the initiative to express interest in you. This is very good. This means that you have a skill that is useful to her business. What is it specifically? Yeah, what was it? Luo Nan was a bit absent-minded. He held a cautious attitude toward Her Majesty Empress Wu's basis for recruiting him. It was hard not to be suspicious when he carried a treasure on him. He didn't have an answer right now, but he couldn't stop talking. He could only rack his brain and comb through his abilities on the surface. Fortunately, a flash of inspiration struck him before he suffocated to death. He combined today's experience and found a reason. They appreciate my sketching ability. Sketching? Luo Nan's answer was more or less outside of the expectations of the two parents. They looked at each other once more. They knew that Luo Nan had a sketching ability. He could sketch a vivid and lifelike drawing in an extremely short amount of time. But what was the use of this toy? Luo Shuqing immediately asked, "What does the Hidden Indigo firm need this kind of employee for?" It seems to be a detective or something. Nowadays, many people carry anti-surveillance equipment. Some things are hard to operate, and it will arouse the other party's vigilance. They want to recruit someone like me to give it a try. Private detective? Luo Shuqing's brows locked tight. This sort of job? Yeah. I also feel that this sort of job is a bit strange. It's just that I can't refuse them face to face because of my friend. I'll wait for the other side's enthusiasm to subside in 2 days. Then I'll refuse. Luo Nan finished speaking in a single breath and let out a long sigh of relief. He had finally made the connection, but he would certainly collapse if he continued speaking. He immediately swept the food off the table, like a whirlwind sweeping away the clouds. Then he stood up. That's about it. Uncle and Auntie, don't worry. I won't run off into society. Oh, the materials for today's supplementary lessons should be sent over. There's also homework. I'm going upstairs. He didn't even tidy up the dishes after he finished speaking. He turned around and left. Luo Shuqing still wanted to call out to him, but Mo Haiheng gestured for her to calm down. The two made eye contact, and Luo Shuqing discovered that her husband's attitude was extremely serious. Luo Nan went up to the second floor in a few steps and fled to his room. He locked the door and finally relaxed. He lay on the bed, swayed a few times, and then began to roll around while holding his head. Luo Nan, you pig. Dumbass. Idiot. He muttered as he defiled himself to relieve the hatred in his heart. But soon he began to feel weak in his heart. His two elders should be pondering over his matter right now. His words were full of flaws. He shouldn't think of getting through this easily. For now, he needed to do some detective work. Oh no, it should be the work of a spy. Yes, with his mental sensing ability, there were no secrets to the conversation between uncle and auntie. When the time came, he would design a plan to deal with suspicions. It shouldn't be hard to brush them off, right? Chapter 347. Mr. Luo, are you looking for me? He Yuan asked through the hexa ear. Her voice was low and hoarse. She was probably in a rather tired state. Luo Nan grunted, unable to respond immediately. He remembered Bamboo Pole's example, and knew that He Yuan was also under a lot of pressure. It was inevitable that he would feel a little embarrassed constantly troubling her. Mr. Luo? He Yuan's tone was still questioning, but her attitude was still very calm. It's like this. Just now Brother Bamboo Pole mentioned. Luo Nan did his best to make a long story short. He talked about how Bamboo Pole earned extra money, and how he helped Her Majesty Empress Wu recruit him. In the end, he naturally asked for He Yuan's opinion. He Yuan didn't respond immediately. She was silent for approximately half a minute. When she opened her mouth again, she didn't rush to answer Luo Nan's question. Instead, she inquired about the details of the time, including the examples that Luo Nan was too embarrassed to elaborate on. She asked about them one by one. Luo Nan was basically forced by He Yuan to recollect the situation at the time once more. He felt even more awkward. He felt like he was a villain who was trying to stir up trouble. He Yuan didn't care about this. After thinking for a moment, she opened her mouth and said, Mr. Luo, are you considering whether or not to join? Or are you considering Her Majesty Empress Wu's thoughts? These words hit the nail on the head. Luo Nan had gone through this period of contemplation, and He Yuan had forced him to recall. Luo Nan was more or less clear about his own thoughts. Why did he join the hidden indigo firm? In the past, Zhang Yingying had also introduced the firm to him. The main business of this firm was to provide services to the rich and powerful of Xia City. They looked for rich men to catch sheep, managed interpersonal relationships, made investments, and so on. This wasn't the life Luo Nan wanted, except for a generous income. Luo Nan didn't have anything to hide. He immediately responded, I don't understand what Her Majesty Empress Wu is thinking. Well, hold on. She doesn't seem to be particularly eager to recruit me. A flash of inspiration flashed through Luo Nan's mind as he spoke, and the meaning of the latter half of the sentence changed. He Yuan declined to comment. What's the reason? A few days ago the firm did a business outsourcing. This model suits me very well. At least, it's more suitable than working in the firm. If it wasn't for this matter, and I'm in urgent need of money now, I might really join. But since there's a better way, it'll definitely affect the so-called recruitment. Isn't that so? Luo Nan was a bit lacking in confidence when he spoke to this point. He urgently needed to seek advice. He Yuan replied, "There's no problem with the overall train of thought. Really? There's only one thing that needs to be corrected." According to Her Majesty Empress Wu's temperament, the business opportunities you've obtained should be compensation. Luo Nan expressed his lack of understanding. He Yuan explained to him, "According to what you've said, Bamboo Pole's evaluation of Her Majesty Empress Wu is quite appropriate. Her Majesty Empress Wu has always abided by the law and disregarded morality. She seems to not bother with trifles normally, but she is actually very strict, both to others and to herself. It wasn't just this time. In the past, Bamboo Pole had also mentioned this point in class, and had even given a few examples. But when Luo Nan thought of Zhang Yingying, he went a bit off track. He really couldn't imagine how that sister, with her flying and bouncing temperament, was able to survive under the pressure of her strict boss. It would be difficult to establish a relevant impression, but now that He Yuan had said the same thing, he had no choice but to believe it. "Harsh it is. I don't want to go anymore. What does this have to do with compensation?" Because of the headquarters. He Yuan's words hit the nail on the head. Headquarters took action against you after Her Majesty Empress Wu agreed to protect you from President Ouyang. The situation was critical at the time. Admittedly, Black Beetle was the reason behind it, but an oversight is an oversight. Her Majesty Empress Wu is harsh to herself and others. Mending the pen after the sheep is lost must be done. Otherwise, even if Yingying is different from ordinary people, it would be very difficult to obtain Her Majesty Empress Wu's agreement to give you a deal worth several million. Luo Nan suddenly realized, no wonder. Otherwise, it could be said that there was no such thing as meat pies falling from the sky in this world. Now the feeling of unease brought about by the generous business rewards vanished like smoke in thin air. So this was exchanged with his life. Of course, Her Majesty Empress Wu's principle of self-discipline and Zhang Yingying's care and concern were still engraved in his heart. And now, after He Yuan explained the compensation, she changed the topic and entered the main topic. As for this recruitment, it's just as you said. Her Majesty Empress Wu probably doesn't expect you to join the hidden indigo firm. She had Bamboo Pole deliver the message. She probably expressed her attitude more than anything else. What attitude? Her Majesty Empress Wu is well known for pushing down the wall. She has devoted herself to forging a brand new social order these past few years, allowing ability users to seamlessly enter the secular society. Naturally, it is easier for young people to exert influence in promoting and putting her theories into practice. In fact, she is famous for her love of training young people with potential. Brother Bamboo Pole talked about this before. Well, are you saying that Her Majesty Empress Wu is displaying her appreciation for me? He Yuan let out a rare chuckle. The word display is well used. Luo Nan's mind went in circles. So you're saying that the so-called display isn't for me, but for other people? If this wasn't the case, then why would Her Majesty Empress Wu send the message through Bamboo Pole? And why would Bamboo Pole ask you to consult others? This is to release public opinion, to expand its influence, and to declare its attitude to people with intentions. In this way, people like headquarters won't have to consider the factor of Her Majesty Empress Wu's deep involvement if they want to make a move against you. Bamboo Pole is quite right. Public and private matters are different in the end. Nothing is more ideal than balancing public and private matters. Luo Nan finally understood the twists and turns within. He let out a long sigh of relief, but he also had a bit of complex emotions. So you're saying that the so-called recruitment is just an empty title? I say. He Yuan's voice was gentle as she spoke softly. Mr. Luo shouldn't be unduly humble. Her Majesty Empress Wu is harsh on herself and others. Her standards are extremely high. If Mr. Luo isn't up to par, then she wouldn't even give you a glance. She wouldn't even put on this sort of attitude. To put it bluntly, this is an expression of goodwill. It's an investment for the future. That's enough, Sister Yuan. I'm not someone with a heart of glass. I know my own position. I have Her Majesty Empress Wu's explicit words to protect me. What's there to be dissatisfied about? Luo Nan responded with a brisk tone. After dispelling his doubts, he was really embarrassed to take up more of He Yuan's time. He immediately said, "Sister Yuan, I'm relieved after you explain things. You still have things to do over there, right? Hurry up and do what you need to do. I'm doing homework, and I still have evening classes." "It's nothing. It's just some routine work. I've already finished dealing with it. But you've been arranging your homework tightly. Can you handle it?" "No problem. You don't mind, do you?" Luonan suddenly recalled that he had repeated Bamboo Pole's example and evaluation to He Yuan. Those words weren't anything good. Of course, Luonan's question was really stupid. Mind what? Her Majesty Empress Wu is just taking the opportunity to knock me down a bit. Huh. Bamboo Pole certainly counted me in when he told you to consult others. Most of those words were said for me to hear. It's probably because I've been acting too hastily in the branch recently. Sister Yuan. Luonan didn't know what to say for a time. He knew that He Yuan was under enormous pressure from Bamboo Pole's evaluation. If another extraordinary were to express her opposition, then He Yuan's handling of matters in the future would become even more burdensome. He Yuan turned around to comfort him while he was worrying. "You know your own position, and so do I. Bamboo Pole said that my goal is much clearer than yours. Actually, what he said isn't correct. Your goal is equally clear. It's just that many aspects are involved in realizing it. It's too complicated between light and dark. It's not easy to start." Yes, that's the logic. He Yuan's words really spoke to the bottom of Luonan's heart. His goal, whether it was to clear his grandfather's name or to protect his mother's work of art, involved many levels and many powers. They were all intertwined with each other. He didn't have the skill to solve this problem. He didn't have the corresponding sharpness to cut through the Gordian knot. It was as if He Yuan could hear his thoughts. She said, "Since it's like this, I might as well say a cliché. Sharpening the knife will not delay the work of chopping wood. If you really don't know where to start, then just sharpen the knife. Wait until the blade is sharp, and there will be a day when your worries will be severed." "Yes, I know. Sister Yuan, I will definitely work hard." Luonan couldn't help feeling a bit embarrassed when he spoke to this point. Why did he sound like an elementary school student writing a pledge? He Yuan didn't mind. She said softly, "Your mental ability to interfere with matter has just manifested. You don't know what to do. You must be careful. If you don't want to go to Bai Xinyan's place, there's no harm in going to Divine Yu Gym. They're quite brilliant at nurturing energy, solidifying the foundation, and cultivating the body." Yes, Gym Master Xiao is truly talented. Luonan spoke sincerely. He Yuan paused for a moment. Then she suddenly asked, "You're still cultivating the eye's orifice?" "Yeah." Gym Master Xiao said that the eye's orifice has just reached small success. It needs to be consolidated until yin and yang are connected from the outside. And then you need to cultivate the ear orifice and the mouth orifice. At the very least, you need to cultivate the 3 essentials. Only then can you proceed to the next step. He Yuan gave a light grunt and said, "The 3 essentials of the 9 orifice are to clear the internal organs, solidify the essence and energy, and purify the mind. These are the proper paths of cultivation. There's no harm in cultivating them seriously. But if it's just some bizarre talk or daydream, then you don't need to pay attention to it." Huh. Luonan didn't understand what she meant by daydream or daydream for a time. By the time he came back to his senses, He Yuan had already said goodnight to him and ended the communication. This was strange. Why did she suddenly say this? He Yuan seemed to be quite familiar with Gym Master Xiao. Luonan was puzzled. He faintly sensed something. A knock came from the door on the first floor. It was Mo Peng, who had had his fill of playing outside, casually entering the house. Only now did Luonan remember that he still needed to investigate the conversation between his aunt and uncle. But when his soul strength covered the area, the 2 elders were already lecturing their son in the living room. There was nothing for him to do for the time being. Luonan listened for a few minutes, but he didn't gain anything. He simply collected his mind and went to do his own things. He finished his homework and took out the basic physics exercises prepared by Worker Zhai. He began to ponder and tackle them. Right now his God gear and body gear were meshed together. His energy flow was dense and comprehensive. If he really put his mind to it, there were very few people who could reach his level of concentration. Soon 2 hours passed. It was already past 10 o'clock. Luonan stretched his back. He followed the doing technique taught to him by Gym Master Xiao. He loosened his joints and relaxed them step by step. His muscles, bones, and skin were wrapped around his body. For a time, muffled sounds rang out incessantly from his body. At the same time, a warm current enshrouded him. It was extremely comfortable. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.